So that's actually our last lecture now. Together again. Welcome Michael from the UI5 team, telling something about the spirit in the team, about open source and OpenUI5. So go ahead.
Thanks, Margot. So welcome everybody also from my side. My name is Graf. I'm part of the UI5 development team at SAP. And this is the last session of fabulous UI5Con, and I'm really excited to be here. So my talk is about the OpenUI5 Spirit, which really captured me when I joined this team 3 years ago, because we were right before releasing OpenUI5 actually as an open source product. And maybe some of you guys were involved in this, maybe you just heard about it, but I just want to give a quick overview on how we got there, what it actually meant for us, and also that great things can happen when a company like SAP decides to open source their UI technology. So, let's talk a little bit about the awakening of OpenUI5. In the beginning, there was SAP UI5, a UI framework that was developed by SAP to create the next generation web applications that we wanted to use for cloud products. It was inner source, so we used it for our products, but we didn't really publicly share the framework with everybody. People with an SAP license could use it, but other than that, you were locked out. And maybe just a quick question: who knows why our logo is a bird?
It's raising of the phoenix.
Yeah,
the dark.
Raising of the phoenix. Okay.
Wasn't that a previous project called Phoenix something?
The previous project actually was called Lightspeed, which is WebDyn Pro. And what is faster than Lightspeed? It's warp. And the first spaceship that had a warp engine was the Phoenix. So just a side story, maybe some details that you guys didn't know yet. And the logo is more about the Phoenix from the ashes, which also is pretty nice, but the original intention was the warp engine. Okay, so UI5 got more mature and more stable, and our first major product that we have released was the Fiori apps. We did other things too, tools, small apps, but Fiori was a major success because these apps looked actually quite uncommonly nice for SAP software. So people were not really used to this kind of software by SAP, and I personally think so too. It's a great improvement on what we did. Okay, so we had Fiori, and Fiori was nice. People liked it, but it was still inner source. So the SAP mentors and also our community wrote this nice manifesto, 13 reasons why SAP should open source SAP UI5. And I had some talks also during the day. What's the reason behind SAP open sourcing such a technology? We never did so before. And this is a really nice explanation on why it actually makes sense to do so. But more on that in a few minutes. So we had this manifesto, and then it suddenly kicked up because the mentors were very creative also. They designed a t-shirt, show your support with SAP UI5. SAP should open source it. Lots of people have worn it during conferences and during SAP events. And then also some aggressive marketing, like this fake subway sign with a subtle message. And one of the SAP mentors, DJ Adams, here having this message in the background on the whiteboard while he was interviewed for technology. So there were some really funny things, and also the community on SCN discussed heavily whether it's not possible to open source it. And then suddenly it happened. And in case you guys weren't there in TechEd in Bangalore on 2013, this was the original announcement by Michael Reh, and I hope this one works.
There's one more announcement I want to make today. And that is basically that SAP is contributing key portions of our SAP UI5 JavaScript framework to the open source community. Everything will be available shortly.
Okay, some applause. Yeah, and Vishal. Vishal was also happy about it.
There's one more announcement I want to make.
Okay, just a second. Yeah, so this was the original announcement, and like 10 minutes after, you could find OpenUI5 on the homepage. Andreas Kunz actually made that work, but it was just the zip files, so you could use it. It was open source. The license was already there. We have secretly organized everything. Oh yeah, let me pull the plug. Sorry, no more multimedia for you guys. And then we had to do something technically. Speaking of technically, OpenUI5 actually relies on all these open source projects here below, like jQuery, LESS, Data.js, D3, and open standards like HTML5 and JavaScript and CSS. So we, the developers, also thought it was a really good idea to open source it, and we are really happy that it actually came this way. And OpenUI5 has been released under the Apache 2 license. There's a little bit more history here in these links. I will send the slides later. But yeah, we were approached with this sudden announcement, and then we had to do something on the technical side. Because internally at SAP we use our own build and development tools, but we didn't want to give them to the open source world because they are quite complicated to use and not so, let's say, compatible to the open source world. So some of our teams said it's a better idea to use tools like Grunt and Node.js for our development builds. And also we wanted to publish the source code on GitHub. By that time it was just a zip file, as I said. So we actually extracted OpenUI5 from the SAP UI5 framework, so to say, and made it work technically to run these components also with those tools. And also we made it work that our commits, our daily work basically at SAP, is directly available on GitHub. So if I show the Git history from today, you can see there's a lot going on even today in our commits history. And you can even see the guys that have done the changes. So Matthias, for example, was heavily involved in all these infrastructure things. And yeah, there's me also. I did some things yesterday, and a lot of colleagues from our framework just pushed their changes. And with a synchronization job, it's right there after like a couple of seconds. So you can consume like everything that we build in our daily work, you can consume it right away. And this is a really different approach than what we usually ship software with at SAP. We have these long validation cycles. It's a lot of effort spent in quality, but therefore we are kind of decoupled from the developers that actually use our products. So with this approach, where we just push our unstable, unstable software, we can make sure that we get instant feedback on all those changes. So coming back to my slides. Just a second. Yeah, okay. So we have the core, then we have OpenUI5 like an onion outside and SAP UI5 on the outside. This is more or less a technical picture, but this is what we actually did. And if we take a look at how change management works, we also had a nice talk about continuous integration with SAP UI5. We do something similar in our teams, meaning we have sliced everything out of SAP UI5 that is open source, that we want to publish under the Apache license. Thanks. And this is an internal Git repository. And then we build it with Maven in our central build infrastructure, or we build it with Grunt on our developer PCs. So we also use the open source tools now. And if we want to build SAP UI5, we have a separate build repository, but it's actually one code line. So we just take the OpenUI5 repository, put it in a bigger container, so to say, with a couple of technical artifacts, and then we build it again as SAP UI5, the main library. But this is not what you find when you actually install it on your ABAP system or in the cloud. This is the distribution layer that contains a lot of different control libraries. because we have also other teams inside SAP that contribute to SAP UI5, and they just give us their changes and we build them on a regular basis and ship it as SAP UI5. So this is like the bigger container, and it looks like a Russian matryoshka, so to say. So all these repositories are actually, it's one code base, but we just build them as a layered process. So that was not so much about change management, more about how we manage the source code. But now some funny developer gets the idea to change something. He has a requirement. Then he creates a Gerrit change. So we have our Gerrit source code review. And of course we have another developer reviewing the change, so that we have 4i principle. And we have, of course, automated tests in Jenkins running on every change, so that we can make sure that everything is actually not breaking old code. So if these two processes are met, then somebody can merge the change, and it's actually becoming part of OpenUI5. But this is still happening inside our infrastructure. And what's then taking place is actually a sync job that pushes the change to the official GitHub repository, and then you can see it as we did in the commit history. Same is also for the distribution layer. Everything gets then into the central repository, but it's not published to GitHub. So now for the open source world, we also want to have contributions from GitHub, and this was initially not possible. We have worked on this one. Somebody creates a pull request on our repository now on GitHub. And we don't want to actually do this internally, the code review now. We want to do it on GitHub, as people are used to in open source projects. So we have the developer from one of our teams directly take a look at the pull request, discuss with the developer, have some rounds of feedback, and also we need to talk to our product management, because we want to make sure that it fits actually to the framework. And once all this is done and it's accepted, then it's imported into our internal Gerrit, and it goes through this loop again, like the automated tests. And finally it's merged and then synced back to GitHub, but still with the name of the original developer. So it's kind of a trade-off. We don't develop outside in the external GitHub, but we have this loop mechanism that works pretty well for us. So just if you're interested in this change management process. Now, you might wonder who did all this. So I brought you a picture of all the people involved. And this is from 2014 actually. It happened somewhere after this infrastructure was created. So a lot more people are actually involved right now. But you can find, for example, Andreas, me, Stefan is also somewhere here. Yeah, a lot of more people. Some of them you might know from our communities or from other events. And of course, we have the SAP mentors. We have people from developer relations that support us with events and things like that. And we have, of course, contributors and our beloved community. So all this basically makes OpenUI5. And if you wonder why I didn't write OpenUI5 team, but OpenUI5 crowd, is because there is no OpenUI5 team. We are just people who are interested in open source. We are UI5 developers, but we are basically taking care of this OpenUI5 stuff also in our regular work. So how do we work in this virtual team, so to say? Well, we do Scrum, so we have a backlog. But it's an open source backlog, and we pick items that we think that are useful and do them when we get time and resources from SAP, basically. And yeah, we maintain this backlog. We also put community stuff in there and feedback that we get from GitHub. And we organize events, dispatching, who looks at the communities, things like that. And we also ship preview releases. So as I said, we ship our unstable releases from time to time, and you can just use it in your projects and see how the new features are and how you like them. So this is a great shift towards getting directly in touch with the community.
maybe avoid the word unstable.
Yeah.
It's not yet completely validated. It should be stable with the automated test, but we have to make it clear that it's not the usual validation that has the complete validation that has taken place.
Just to remind you, Stefan, it's actually it's actually labeled unstable release here on the homepage. That's why
I know legally always
it's a legal term. It's a legal term, but you can see we are already on a new version than we are actually shipping with SAP UI5 here in the OpenUI5 world. But thanks. It's pretty stable, but it's all right. I think the button would just get too long for that, so. But I keep that in mind. All right. There we go. So, speaking of the backlog, just a picture from our team's backlog. Our sprint just was finished yesterday, and you can see our backlog is actually a mixture of OpenUI5 topics. You can find the dispatcher here who takes a look at the OpenUI5 issues, or even the preparations for UI5Con we have a backlog item for. And we also work on this OpenSAP course that Stefan mentioned this morning. And it changes from sprint to sprint. Sometimes we have more time for your OpenUI5, sometimes less. But we usually try to get 1 or 2 items in. Okay. And of course, this is our Scrum gong. So if developers are lazy, we ring the gong, and then people come to our daily Scrum. Okay. So we have invested quite a bit in the OpenUI5 topics. And what happened is actually that our communities suddenly started to grow. So usually in the SAP world, you are on SEN, you write blogs there, you discuss, you have problems to answer, things like that. But in the open source world, people mostly discuss stuff on Stack Overflow. Like there's a lot of people answering questions and also asking questions there. We wanted to do something on YouTube, so we created a YouTube channel and uploaded developer podcasts that are kind of informal. We just talk about things that interest us. We have this great Slack chat that we also use to organize this conference and to talk about things like a custom control library, so very exciting topics. We have the Twitter account where we post pictures and updates on events. A Tumblr blog where we mostly write about the new features that are in our preview releases. And we have this tool called Planet, which is like a feed collector where all the news about UI5 that people write are collected. So these are all linked here behind these logos. You might want to check them out if you don't know them yet. Good. Then we also advocate for UI5 in events. Not only us, but also the people from developer relations and other guys from the community, like the mentors. So we go to conferences like the OSCON, TechEd, typical SAP event, DevOps, all kinds of things. And then usually we have a booth or some kind of talk about technical stuff and why you should use UI5, for example. And then we have also these Code Jam events, which are also very popular. Sometimes customers, people from university, all kinds of folks come there to learn about our technology. And those are also distributed very nicely all over the planet, I think. Meanwhile, there's an announcement on those on SEN, so I think there's some events coming up again soon. Just check them out if you want. Good, I have some pictures here also from the events if you like. So this was from the Code Motion. Some other conference booth. Or here showcasing something. And yeah, a talk by Andreas and Frederick on OSCON. So we do all kinds of events too. Good, and as a result of these activities, we are really happy that we can see our usage statistics actually start to increase. So we have a lot more SDK down. We have about 45,000 SDK downloads since we went open source. We have about 500,000 launches of the OpenUI5 SDK. So this is only OpenUI5, not SAP UI5, because this talk is mostly about OpenUI5. And we have the content delivery network quite heavily used also these days. So this is like the cloud-hosted version of UI5 that you can use for your applications. And a lot of users on SCN too. We also have this reference page. So there's customers and partners listed who build projects with OpenUI5. And if you know somebody who wants to be listed there, then just get in touch with us and we add you to the list. We also plan to have more information on the projects. Right now it's just a list of references. And some examples on what can be built with UI5. I mean, you've all seen these great talks today, so there's a lot more that you can do, but just what I found during my research. So this was one of the demo apps that we have created for conferences, like a World Cup app. And this one looks pretty much standard Fiori design patterns, like blue, whitish. But then just somebody also created his company homepage with like 3D cubes floating in the background and like bright tiles and everything. So you can really do great things with it and just customize it if you like. Then one of the SAP mentors did his private homepage with it. It's also looking quite nice. We have a web shop being created. One of the folks was just at SAP and showed it to us. It's a really nice product being created with SAP, with OpenUI5. This is actually one of my side projects that I did during the last years. It's like a virtual pinboard, also with lots of custom controls. And we use it sometimes for virtual design thinking and stuff like that. We have an internal bulletin board, which is in the meanwhile also built with UI5. Not sure if it's with sub-UI5 or OpenUI5, but it's technically the same, as you know by now. And I was quite surprised also we have some natives apps now in the meantime in the Google Play Store, which are like packaged applications. So you can just search for OpenUI5 and you will find these applications. And last but not least, our cameraman Jens created an app to control his U-lamps at home. So he can just switch them on and off. So this also works really nice. Just some examples.
I did it for my Lightify.
Cool. It's also nice to see that people just start playing around with it. Good. If people use a framework, of course, they spot issues and they report them to us. And the good thing is that both versions, sub-UI5 and OpenUI5, directly get the fix because it's the same code base. So if we get something reported on GitHub, it directly goes back into sub-UI5 and OpenUI5, and then it's getting contributed basically. So we get instant feedback, we get feature requests also via pull requests, and we get a lot of bug fixes or issues being reported. And sometimes we just have too much on our tables, then we decide to flag them as contribution welcome, and then we are happy to take your changes if you want. You can take a look, make a fix, or make an enhancement, and then we can take a look at that. So we usually take care of this queue and get back to you and connect you with the developer that is in charge of this control or this feature. So yeah, the overall quality is kept on a really high level on the one side by SAP and by us developers, and also on the other side by the community, because you guys just help us in spotting issues that we didn't find through our tests, or because you just use the stuff differently than we are thinking about it. And this is really great for us because yeah, it's one of the benefits of having a good community is that you get feedback. And then something unexpected also is that we have right now in the meantime 30 plus open source projects that also are related either to OpenUI5 or are just adding new functionality to OpenUI5. And I think when I heard the presentations today, I think it's even more. It's like whatever number. And these are solely the GitHub projects, just to mention a few of them. For example, the Google Maps API stuff is quite widely used. We have some editor plugins for Sublime, for example. We have a Docker image for OpenUI5. We have the UI5 inspector that was actually developed internally at SAP, but then open sourced. It's a Chrome plugin for debugging UI5. And one of the projects I'm really excited about is this custom controls GitHub library. It's still empty, but it's an idea of the SAP. Yeah, okay.
There's a few that aren't public.
Yeah. Okay, so it's still empty, but the good news is you can change that. You can just contribute your great, awesome controls there. And this would be really nice to have a public space where you can host custom controls and just pick some that you want to use for your projects. So I'm really happy that this idea was created, and I hope so that you guys keep on adding stuff on there. Yeah, it's something that we would not have imagined, and that just happened. So people started using it, they found something missing in the open source world that they usually know, and then they just created a project, put it open source, and other people can use it too. So I hope we will see some more projects here in the future too. And last but not least, you are part of the very first ever UI5 conference, and this is also a community event, so it was not mainly organized by SAP. Margot did a great job in holding everything together, but it was really a community event, so we discussed it over the Slack channel. We did a lot of things there to make it work, but it was organized together and jointly, and seeing so many people here in the room and so many great talks today makes me really proud of this, so it's very nice. So that's what I wanted to show you today with the OpenUI5 Spirit, and I hope I got you in a mood of contributing and helping us with the community stuff. You're always welcome to contribute, and I hope we will see each other in the communities and in the forums. So thanks, open for questions and any kind of